In the first reading today, we hear that the man is blessed or happy who is found without fault and who turns not aside after gain nor puts his trust in money. It's that point of not turning aside after gain that is the point that is most important here. We can all understand why, of course, somebody without fault is blessed. We can understand why they're not putting their trust in money, but they're putting their trust in God. Obviously, they're going to be blessed. But it's that point of not turning aside after gain that we have to consider, because that's where the selfishness comes in. We've all been in those situations where we can do something good for somebody, but of course, we can gain something from it. We look at our motive. We have to ask ourselves, am I doing this simply because it's the right thing to do, because it's an act of charity for the other person? Or am I doing it so that I can get something in return? That I want to be recognized, that I want to be promoted, that I want this person to like me, whatever it might be. How often we do things with a selfish motive. Now, saying that, of course, we have to recognize that until we achieve spiritual perfection, there's going to be some selfishness literally in absolutely every single thing that we do. The question is, how much? And so we start out, as we come into this world, as the most selfish little creatures on the face of the earth. Babies need to be. We can deal with that. That's how they survive. But the goal is to become selfless. That is the whole purpose of the Christian life, is to be able to grow in virtue, ultimately the virtue of charity, the love of God, the love of neighbor. That is what our judgment is ultimately going to be on. When we really stop and think about it, yes, we're going to have to answer for this and that and the other thing, but when we look at it, it's all about charity. Where's the selfishness? Where is that self-centeredness? Where is the self-motive in what we're doing? And are we working against that? Because even when we look at the point of getting to heaven, we know that the first priority for every one of us is to save our own soul and to get to heaven. But do we do things specifically so that we can get a greater gain? I mean, sadly, even the way the church presents some things can kind of lead us into that. Oh, if you do this, then you can get this indulgence. If you do this, then you get a higher place in heaven. If you do this, then it's like, why am I doing this? If we look earlier in the month, even throughout this month, am I truly doing things for the poor souls for their sake? Am I doing it because I want them to pray for me and because I can gain this and I can get something out of this? Yeah, they're getting something good out of it too. That's nice, but look what I can get. Are we really doing it for them? Or are we doing it for ourselves? Pure charity isn't interested in the self. We want ultimately to love God and love neighbor for them, not for us, because that's what charity is. It's seeking the good of the other. It's not self-interested. That's the hard part for us. And so if we look at the spiritual life, most of us start the spiritual life with very selfish intent. Let's be honest. It's the reality. That's why, as you begin with the prayer, the Lord has to give you all kinds of consolations, what I call lollipops. He gives you all kinds of lollipops just to keep you coming back, because he knows that if it wasn't for all the consolations, we'd quit. Oh, this is hard. Oh, this is boring. Oh, I don't get anything out of it. And then as you start getting into prayer a little bit, then he's going to allow it to dry up a bit. Usually it'll only start for maybe one day, or even part of one day. And then you get used to that, and then it's for 2 days, and then it's 3 days, and then it's 4 days, and a week, and 2 weeks, and eventually it can literally be years. And the reason for that is because he is stripping us of our selfishness. He is saying to us, I want you to go to prayer for the same reason that I'm there. He's there for us. Therefore, he wants us to be there for him. We don't have to worry about what we're going to get out of it. We don't have to worry about, is this going to get me a higher place in heaven, or can I get an indulgence for this or whatever? It doesn't matter. You're there to love the Lord. You're not being turned aside by gain. That's what he's looking for, a pure heart, a heart of pure love. That's the goal. That's what the spiritual life leads us to. That's what the Christian life is to lead us to. So yes, we all have lots of selfishness. That's why the person who isn't turned aside by gain is blessed, because they're not interested in what they can get. They're just interested in what they can give. They're simply looking to love the Lord and to love the people that he's put in their life without anything for themselves, a totally disinterested kind of charity. That's what all of us are supposed to be about. So, a wonderful opportunity for us to all look at all that in everything that we do. Because again, as Herbert von Zeller asked after he had written about 100 books on the spiritual life, is there anything that we ever do that doesn't have something of the self in it? And the answer is, until we reach that point of perfection, no. So look at everything that you do. Look at the way you're doing it, look at why you're doing it, and be honest with yourself. Brutally honest with yourself, and ask yourself how much self-interest is here, how much selfishness is involved in this, how much of this is really about me as opposed to the other, whether the other is God or whether the other is neighbor. And once we can begin to see that, and it's a rather painful thing to see, because of course we want to convince ourselves of how holy we are and how perfect we are and how much selfishness we've gotten rid of and how therefore selfless we really are. And then God shows us, it's like, yeah, you've gotten rid of about that much selfishness, the rest of it's still there. So we have a long way to go, but until we can see it, we can't work on it. So pray and ask him to show you the selfishness and brace yourself, because it's a painful day when that happens. And once you can see it, you begin to recognize it throughout everything that you do. And then you can begin to work against it, so that one day what is said in the reading can be said of us. Blessed is the one who did not turn aside after gain.